Hey, welcome back to a solo edition of BGO Blind Pig podcast. This one we call Opposing Delicacies, where we travel to road city destinations that the commanders are going to plan, and we talk about what are the favorite regional cuisines that fans of the dreaded enemy love and cherish. We all love food. I think most of us do. And I just think it's a really cool way to just add another layer of the clash against, in this case, the Baltimore Ravens, just up I-95 for you DMV folks. I'm one of them. I grew up in Northern Virginia. And so we're going to talk about two really iconic Baltimorean dishes today. And the first one goes way back. The second one is a little bit more modern, but we're talking about Coddies, Coddies, which is a fried codfish potato ball served in a very special Baltimorean way. Goes all the way back to like the early 1900s. Then we're going to also talk about a more modern dish, which is Baltimore Pit Beef. And one thing I've noticed, having done several of these over the years, is that every region of the United States seems to have a love affair with a roast beef sandwich, but they all put their own take on it. A couple of years ago, when we played Buffalo on the road, we did beef on weck, which is this amazing roast beef sandwich on kind of a pretzel roll. Just an amazing thing if you ever go to Buffalo. But we're going to talk Baltimore roast beef sandwich today. And the only Baltimore roast beef sandwich is Baltimore Pit Beef. So I'm really excited to do both of these dishes for you. I have never made either of these dishes. I didn't know a damn thing about either one of them until I prepared for today. And so you're going to be going through my experience as a total newbie. I wasn't born in Baltimore. My dad used to fight organized crime in Baltimore back in the late 60s and early 70s, but I never lived in Baltimore, and I never had a desire to, but I am very interested in their cuisine. So let's get started. We're going to start with the more complicated one, which is Coddies. And that, again, is a codfish ball. It's fried, dates all the way back to the 1900s. So here we go. Let's talk about how do we prepare Coddies in the Baltimore fashion.
All right, as the basis for our Coddies, of course, we're going to soak our salt cod in some water overnight. Try to get a lot of that salt out of there. If you're using fresh cod, obviously you don't have to do that. But then I also I took some regular russet potatoes, about 3 big ones, because I'm doing roughly like 2.5 pounds of salt cod. So this is about 1 pound of bacon or russet potatoes. All I've done is peeled them, cubed them. You actually could cut them into bigger chunks, because all we're going to do is got them in some salted water right now, but in a little while we'll put them in a saucepan with a lid and some water, and we'll go ahead and boil them and let them simmer until they're soft, because we're going to mash them. The mashed potatoes is going to be our part of our base for our Coddies.
So once you've got your potatoes boiled, you can use any kind of potatoes you want, but we're going to go ahead and make a mashed potato base. When you're making Coddies, it's about 2/3 codfish, 1/3 potatoes. So, I use like 2.5 pounds of codfish, salted codfish, to maybe 1 pound or so of potatoes. But that's just a general idea of the ratio. You want to have basically 3 parts codfish to 1 part potato. But let's finish up our potatoes.
So I boiled my salted potatoes, 3 total potatoes, cubed up. I boiled them for about 20 minutes, and then I pulled them out. I drained them, added a couple of splashes of milk, maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons, some salt, some pepper, some parsley, some butter, and I mashed these potatoes up. And I'm actually doing these the day before, so I'll let them cool off a little bit, and then I'll cover them and put them in the fridge. So a lot of this work on the Coddies you can do ahead of time.
So I'm a big fan of always seasoning everything that you're going to add to a dish. So definitely season your potatoes up. I'll tell you a secret. You could probably buy potato flakes at your grocery, instant potatoes. You might not be able to tell one bit of difference. When I'm doing these local cuisines, I always like to do it the way that they would do it, at least to the best of my knowledge, not being a local. So I do a lot of research. There's a lot of variation out there when people are, even with beloved meals that are local favorites. But I try to do it authentically. So, but you could do it. I'm a big fan of easy, man. If you want to go out there and buy potato flakes, no one's going to know. Just spice it up a little bit and go for it. But we're going to talk next about the most important ingredient of Coddies, hence the name, which is salted codfish.
So obviously the most important ingredient in our Coddies is our salt cod. And I ordered this online. I mean, as the Fairly Odd Parents series used to say, you can get anything on the internet. And salt cod is no exception. And this stuff is, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's got some stank to it, but it's a good stank. And you can just tell this stuff will probably last through the next nuclear exchange. it's that preserved. But basically what I'm going to do is it has so much salt in it right now we could not eat it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some cold water on that and cover it up, and we'll soak that overnight. We'll totally cover it. We'll soak it overnight, and then we will rinse it off in the morning and take a little taste to make sure that the salt content is acceptable. So it should be a little bit salty, but not like, like you're pouring a shaker of salt in your mouth. You could use fresh cod for this, or really any fish, but hey, I'm all about like doing it authentic. And this dish was, birthed early on in Baltimore's history with salt cod. That's what they had, and that's what they used. So that's what we're going to use. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow morning after a overnight soak.
So yeah, I've got this old guy thing. I'm 62. I've been a Washington fan since 1960, probably 6 or 1967, since I was a little kid. And it's been a long road, my friends. A lot of pain and suffering. Some great years. I got spoiled as a kid and a teenager. I just thought, Super Bowls just, happened every 2 or 3 years. It's been a long, dry stretch. So I'm really enjoying the season, as I know you guys are. Probably the most optimistic I've been in a long time. But let's get back to our codfish. I have this old guy thing going on where I wake up at like 1 a.m. and I'm like, what the ever loving hell? Why am I awake, and why can I not go back to sleep? So that happened to me this morning. So I just drug my ass out of bed, and I thought, hey, why don't I keep working on my opposing delicacies? So I did drain my codfish and put some fresh water in there. I was a little worried about it being too salty, but really that didn't turn out to be a major issue. So let's get back to our recipe. Here's what we're doing with our codfish.
So it's the next morning, and I have soaked my salt cod. I did change the water once in the middle of the night because I woke up. And now I've just replaced about 2 inches of the water, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. Now, you could actually make your cod balls without cooking the cod first, but I think it's going to be easier to flake it up if I cook it a little bit. And so I'm going to bring the water to a boil, put my lid on, and let it cook for about 10 minutes and then cool off, and then we will flake it up, and we'll go from there.
I do suggest that you cook the cod. You don't have to cook it a lot, like 10 minutes was plenty cooked. But I think flaking it when you haven't cooked it, the last thing you want to do is have your final product and you bite into it and you're like, it's not quite firm, and and cooked. So that was one of the variations I saw in recipes. Is some people just shredded up the raw cod, and some people cooked it. I just thought, what the hell, I'll cook it, and it worked out fine for me. So I suggest you do that. So let's get on to, we've cooked our cod. Let's see what it looks like.
So I finished cooking my salt cod, about 10 minutes. Again, not necessarily required that you cook it, but I just thought it would be easier to flake. So I cooked it for about 10 minutes, drained it, soaked up as much liquid as I could with paper towels because you don't want a lot of liquid in these. And then I shredded it up, flaked it up with a couple of forks. And again, that's about 2.5 pounds of salt cod. And then we're going to go ahead and start assembling our ingredients for the cod balls. I've got about a quarter of a onion diced up. I'm going to add to that 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, which the recipe actually did not call for, but I love garlic, and I think it called for garlic powder. So I'm going to go ahead and use fresh garlic for that. I'm going to take our mashed potatoes. Again, that's 3 russet potatoes that I prepared and mashed and added salt and pepper to last night. I'm going to add that to the mix here. Then I've got a couple of eggs beaten lightly that I'm going to add. That's going to be the most liquid that we add, along with about 4 tablespoons. I'm using margarine, but you could use butter, whatever your preference is. And then the last thing I'm going to add is about a tablespoon of dried parsley and maybe half a teaspoon of cayenne. Now, some recipes call for bay seasoning, but my thing with bay seasoning is, look, I love bay seasoning. I grew up on Maryland crabs. I am a Maryland blue crab guy since I was old enough to pick up one and tear it apart. I know how to do that, and I've done it thousands of times. But Old Bay makes everything taste like Old Bay. It's such an overwhelming flavor, and I don't want these Coddies to just taste like Old Bay. So that's why I did not go that route. But if you love Old Bay and you want your Coddies to taste like Old Bay, you can certainly do that. But I'm not going to. So I'll spare you my shaking camera view of me mixing this all up. But we're going to go ahead and mix it up. And then the next step will be coating these cod balls with some saltine cracker crumbs that I have put through the food processor. So I'll show you what the end result looks like. We want to make our cod balls about the size of an egg and then flatten them out a little bit so they're kind of like little hamburger patties. But anyway, that's how we're assembling our Coddies to this point.
So by far the most labor-intensive part of this recipe, putting the Coddies together, was shredding that cod. I used a couple of forks. If I had to do over again, I might just throw them in the food processor and let it chunk them up real good, because it took a little while. It took quite a while to shred that cod. It's just kind of fibrous and a little stringy, and might be easier if you use fresh cod. But anyway, don't be afraid to do your own thing, with these recipes. Anything that's easier is usually better. And so we've got our cod and all of our ingredients mixed together. And now let's see what we do in terms of putting the actual Coddies on a plate ready to fry them up.
So we're going to go ahead and start assembling our codfish balls. And again, I've never done this before, so you'll get to watch me do it. I'm going to make my egg shape. That's about the size I'm shooting for, kind of like an egg. And then we're just going to roll it in our cracker crumb flour. And the biggest thing is I want enough on here so that they don't fall apart. I'm going to be deep frying my Coddies. Most recipes call for pan frying them, but I've got a deep fryer, so I figure why not use it. And so that's what we'll be doing. Pretty simple process. And I'm not going to make you watch 20 minutes of me assembling coddies, but you get the general idea. We're just forming egg shapes, putting them in the cracker crumbs, making sure they're well coated. And you could actually do this ahead of time and then cook them, fry them at your leisure whenever you had a moment. So if you were doing this for like a tailgate or a family gathering, you could do most of it ahead of time. So we will spare you watching me do all 2.5 pounds of my codfish, but you get the general idea of how we're assembling them.
So full disclosure, you always learn lessons when you're doing cooking that you've never done before. And lesson one is, look, the Baltimorean way of serving coddies is to put a fried coddy, on a saltine or sandwich between saltines. And so there was no way those coddies that I was putting together that were like tennis ball sized were going to fit on a saltine. So off camera, I took each one of those coddies I made and I cut it in half and I made golf ball size. Once you smash it down, that fits perfectly, as you'll see in the final video, fits perfectly on a saltine. So that is one adjustment I made because the coddies that I initially made were way too big. I mean, they would have been very good, but there's no way in hell I was serving them on a saltine cracker like traditionally they're served. So anyway, we've got our coddies assembled and corrected because I was way too overzealous in sizing them. And now we're ready to fry these bad boys up.
All right, we've got our oil up to about 350, 375 in that range. And I went ahead and put some Pam spray on my basket. You may notice that my coddies that I greatly reduced the size, I basically had them about twice as big as they needed to be. And since we're gonna be serving them on a cracker, I wanted to get them back down to like a normal size. I'm gonna do about 6 of them at a time here, maybe 5 of them at a time. You don't wanna overload it because if you've ever deep fried anything, you know that you put too much food in there and they just will not fry. So I've got my coddies. We're going into the dunk here and I'm gonna put my timer on for about 4 minutes and we'll check them intermittently here. I'm not going to make you sit here for 4 minutes listening to me drone on and on. So we will check our coddies when they're done and go from there.
So I ended up frying my coddies for 5 minutes, which that was about perfect. Between 350, 375, 5 minutes resulted in a perfect product. It was well cooked. It was brown. It was beautiful. And you'll see the result in a minute.
All right, we've had our coddies frying in the deep fryer at about 350, 375 for about 5 minutes. I decided to let them go a little bit extra because I did not pre-cook the onion and garlic, and I want to make sure they're done and not soft in the middle. So let's take a look at how the coddies look here. They look amazing, and one nice thing is they held together really well. So I'm gonna let them sit there for a minute and let some of that extra oil drip off of there. And then we will go ahead, if you have a wire rack, that'd probably be ideal, but since I don't, I'm gonna go ahead and put my coddies on just some paper towels. And obviously this is one of those things where you're doing batches of them, so that you're probably gonna wanna like possibly put them in the oven when, right before dinner, but you can see they're beautiful. They look really well cooked and fried, and I cannot wait to try these.
So I was pleasantly surprised. One of the things I read a lot of complaints about in various recipes is Coddies falling apart, not staying together. I had no issue with that. If you follow my recipe, generally speaking, you will have no problems. And they came out incredibly beautiful, perfect for the first time. I was really happy. But we're going to save the taste test till the very end because we got another dish to walk you through, and that is the amazing roast beef sandwich that Baltimoreans love. I have no idea whether it's Baltimoreans, Balts. I don't know. I don't know what you call yourselves, people. And you live in Baltimore, so I could care less, to be honest with you. So this DMV boy, though, is making some Baltimore pit beef, and I am a big grill smoker guy. I've got a pellet grill. I've got a Weber grill. I gave away a gas grill like a week ago, and I've got a big green egg. So I am all about the barbecue. I'm not a novice by any stretch, but I've never made Baltimore pit beef. And so one thing I've quickly learned is that this is not a smoked meat. This is a hot and fast grilling the ever-loving hell out of a really nice piece of beef and then slicing it thin. So we're going to start with how do we prepare that beef, what cut, and how do we prepare it for the cooking process that we're going to apply to it.
So step one in our Baltimore pit beef, I bought a couple of top round roasts. You could use London broil, you could use sirloin roast. You don't want anything with a lot of fat on it. I actually trimmed most of the fat cap off of these. One of them is about half the size of the other, which is not ideal, but I'm going to make it work. And what I've done is I coated both of the roasts. It's about 5 pounds total. I coated them generously with Worcestershire sauce and let that soak in for like 5-10 minutes. Quite a bit of Worcestershire sauce. And then I added my rub. You can add anything. I never get hung up on like rubs. There's a lot of different variations when you look at Baltimore pit beef recipes, from nothing but salt and pepper to most of them contain, well, let me tell you what I put in. I put in about a handful of garlic powder, handful of onion powder, some oregano, some parsley, both of those dried, some kosher salt, not too much, but probably maybe 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. I added some red hatch chili powder, some paprika, and some cayenne, and then a pretty generous amount of freshly ground black pepper. I think that's everything I've got in there. Maybe a little bit of celery salt. The biggest thing is with the rub is you do not want sugar because we're going to be cooking this. It's not a smoking process. It's basically grilling over burning wood fire. So I'm going to use some charcoal, some good quality charcoal on the big green egg, but I'm going to let this sit overnight to absorb all those spices.
So that's probably the most variation I saw in the recipes that I looked at. Probably the rub and the meat prep was the biggest variability I saw. I saw people that were injecting. I saw people that were putting Worcestershire and Italian dressing together and basting throughout the process. I saw people that were making a paste of their rub with olive oil maybe and rubbing it that way. But I just decided not to overthink it because it's, to me, you're making a roast beef sandwich. The beef is what you want to taste. And anything else you add is just to give it that crust, a little bit of zing on the outside and some salt. And so I didn't go crazy with the rub, but I did just use a dry rub. I did it overnight. And that's what I would recommend you do is don't overthink it. You're not going to mess it up one way or the other. But I did rub it down and then I left it in the fridge overnight. So let's continue on with our Baltimore pit beef process.
All right, so this is overnight. We dry rubbed our top round roasts, and they are looking fantastic. I pulled them out of the fridge to let them come up to a little bit closer to room temp as we fired up the big green egg. The big green egg is set for direct cooking. I propped some bricks up inside it because I don't want that meat sitting right on top of the hardwood charcoal, but I want it close enough to be able to get some sear. We're trying to shoot for like 350 to 400 in that neighborhood of direct flame. I did throw a chunk of post oak in there just to give a little bit of smoke, but we're gonna be cooking that hot and fast over the big green egg coals in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, we're going to be making an essential part of our Baltimore pit beef, and that is the tiger sauce. And I have heard people call it dragon sauce. Hey, I don't know if it's a tiger, it's a dragon, it's a phoenix, it's a garden gnome. I don't know what kind of sauce it is, but we're gonna call it tiger sauce. And I'm not talking about the tiger sauce that you can buy commercially made, which is really not really a nice sauce, but it's very sweet. You can find that in your grocery. We're talking about homemade tiger sauce. And in this case, basically, we're talking about adding about a cup, half a cup or a cup of mayo. And I'm using Duke's because I live in North Carolina. And if you don't use Duke's in North Carolina, they might throw your ass out. That is no lie, man. Duke's is king here in the Carolinas. So I'm not measuring anything. I'm just looking at making a decent amount of sauce. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the key ingredient, which is some fresh, well, grocery fresh anyway, some fresh horseradish. I would probably recommend not using horseradish sauce that you can buy in the grocery, you know, in the non-refrigerated section. I would try to find freshly ground horseradish that you find usually in the seafood section of most grocery stores because it's associated with, you know, raw oysters and other things. And I'm gonna add, I've watched about 100 videos of Baltimore pit beef, and they all get to this point of making the tiger sauce, and they keep saying, I'm gonna add a little bit more horseradish. So I'm going big to start with, and I may add some more, but I'm not gonna add more like 7 times like I've seen in most of the videos. You want this sauce to have a big bite when it comes to the horseradish. And again, I'm just gonna go for it. I know I want it to sting a little bit when I taste that sauce, and so that's what I'm just gonna go ahead and go for it. So that should be pretty good there. And then the other thing, now you're gonna see a lot of variations on sauces. I'm not putting anything in there like paprika or chili powder or anything like that. It's just plain old mayo, really quality mayo, really good quality horseradish. I'm gonna add some spices. Basically, I've got like a tablespoon of pepper, some kosher salt, and some garlic powder. That's pretty much all it needs. So I'm gonna add that in there. And then the last thing I'm gonna add, which again, you'll see recipes with it. You'll see recipes that don't mention it. But I'm gonna add some lemon juice. And again, you know, I'm not doing competition cooking here, so I'm not worried about squeezing fresh lemons. I'm just gonna take some real lemon, and I'm just gonna give it a squirt. Not too much, just a squirt. And that's all I need. And I'm gonna mix that up. And that is gonna be our tiger sauce. We'll put that in the fridge. And of course, I'll give it a taste off camera here to make sure I've got just the right amount of zing to it. But that's gonna be the key, one of the key ingredients once we've got our Baltimore pit beef cooked and sliced up really thinly. And we'll put it on a nice bun, and we'll put plenty of that horseradish sauce, AKA tiger sauce, on top of it. And that's gonna make a big difference to how much we enjoy this sandwich.
Yeah, I really think I needed to add more horseradish to that sauce. Most exciting part of the afternoon, which is continuing our Baltimore pit beef cook. So let's get going and let's go check on that big green egg outside.
Well, we've got our big green egg fired up to about 400. I've let it sit for a while. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. And we will Put a little Pam on there because we're going to be turning this meat quite a bit. Try not to burn your eyebrows off if you can help it. And then we're going to go ahead and put our top round on the big green egg and close it up. We're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes, and then about every 5 minutes I'll be turning it. And the goal is really to char every side of those top rounds, and until we get the internal temperature up to about 120, 125, and then we'll pull it and we'll foil it and let it rest.
Let's check on our big green egg and see how our top rounds are doing.
So we've had this going for maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm just gonna go ahead and burp it, and we'll turn our meat, see how we're doing. We're starting to get a little bit of char, and we are getting a little bit of char on there, and we want a lot more than that, but that's a good start.
So one thing I learned about Baltimore pit beef is, first of all, you could do it on any kind of grill, but you want to make sure it's hot. It's got to be hot, and you want to balance. You don't want to burn it per se, but you definitely want that char. So it's going to take a hot fire. I might have even gone up to 500 if I had to do over again. You don't want to overcook the center, because you want it to be medium rare, ideally, depending on your personal taste. But you want that outside to be charred. So to do that, you got to have that heat cranked up. You could do it on a Weber kettle. You could do it on a Rocky Mountain smoker. You could do it on a pellet grill if you really cranked it up. But you got to get that grill up to at least a 400, maybe higher than that, to get that char on it. So let's continue our cook.
So we've got them at about 125, 130 at the most, and I'm going to go ahead and pull these, and you can see the main thing is you want that char. You want that really good char on there, and we've got that. And it really takes that high heat to achieve that char. So what I'll do now is I'll take these on in, and I will wrap them in foil. I'll just put some foil over the top of the pan here, let it sit for probably 15 minutes to 30 minutes. I could even wrap them if I wanted to in foil and put them in put some towels around them, put them in a cooler for a couple hours if I wanted to, but at least half an hour, and that'll let all the moisture kind of reabsorb into the meat so that they retain that juiciness. And then we will let them cool off a little bit, and then we'll get to slicing for our Baltimore pit beef sandwiches.
So I was really shocked at how quickly the pit beef cooked. Once I got really the hardest part was getting the fire going, and of course preparing the meat ahead of time. But once I got that big green egg really going at 400 plus, that beef did not take long to cook. I got a really good char on the outside of it, and it was, as you'll see in a few minutes, it was nice and medium rare. I mean, it couldn't have gone better as far as a cook goes. And I really didn't have to do a lot of measuring. By the time I measured the internal temp, it was already a little higher than I wanted it to be. I was shooting for like 120, 125, and I think I hit 130 at least on one of them. But it was still very medium rare on the inside when I sliced it. So I would just say hot and fast, man. Think hot and fast, and you'll be in good shape. So let's go ahead and finish our process for the Baltimore pit beef, and most importantly, assemble these two meals and give it a taste test. All right, one of our other ingredients is we're going to thinly slice some onions. And if you can get them. Help but have visions of Seinfeld flipping some cold cuts under the door for the cat that we're supposed to be watching.
but please don't do that. Cats don't like sliced onions. I really don't need all this onion, but I'm slicing it anyway.
Please, if you're asked to watch your neighbor's cat, do not feed them sliced cold cuts under the door. I think that's something we can all agree on. We're going to go ahead, and we've got our onions sliced as thin as you can slice them. Not everyone's a fan of onions, but definitely a key part of the Baltimore Pit Beef sandwich. So let's get to the meat, folks. Where's the beef?
All right, we're getting ready to slice our Baltimore Pit Beef. I've got it set pretty thin. Fire it up and see how it goes. So this is what we got. Nice and thin, perfectly rare. That is going to be awesome. And if you're one of those people that doesn't like it with a little pink or a little red, what you can do is slice the whole thing and then throw it back on the grill. Even in the microwave would do it. But this looks incredible.
Yeah, if I had it to do over again, I would have sliced it even thinner. And please don't be impressed. Up until about 48 hours ago, I didn't have a meat slicer. I was surprised. You can actually get a pretty good meat slicer on Amazon. I went up to the Extra Ingredient here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and bought one. But you can get them online for well under $100. So it's definitely something I kind of feel like, why didn't I buy this sooner than I did? But obviously, a nice either electric carving knife or just a regular knife, a serrated knife, you could do a good job. But slice that beef as thin as you can if possible. So now we are ready. We're gonna show you the reveal and the taste test of both the Coddies and the Baltimore Pit Beef. Let's start out with the Coddies.
All right, the time has come for the taste test while we're finishing up our additional Coddies that we're deep frying. We're gonna do this Baltimore style. I have no idea where this tradition came from, but we're gonna put some yellow mustard on our saltine. Put the Coddy on top. A little bit more yellow mustard. Applying mustard apparently when you are filming yourself is not as easy as you would think. And then another saltine. And we are going to give this a taste, folks. So you'll just have to listen to me as I take a bite. That is damn good. It's super fishy, a lot of good amount of salt still in the fish. Very, I don't want to say gamey, but you can definitely taste that cod. and the spices that are in it and the mustard, that's really good. I can see why this is a local favorite in Baltimore and with all those Ravens fans. So I would definitely do this again.
So on the Coddies, I feel like buying the salt cod, that stank that I talked about it before I even cooked the salt cod. Just when I opened the box from Amazon that had the salt cod in it, it was like, holy hell. I mean, there was some serious stank to that fish. And I don't know if you call it umami, whatever you want to call it, but that intense smell and flavor, I think I would really recommend, if nothing else from you take from this, if you're going to try the coddies, do it with salt cod, man. Buy it online. It's cheap. Get some salt cod and do it the traditional Baltimore way, because I don't think using fresh cod is the same thing. I don't. It's not going to have that smell and that stank and that character to it. So go all the way, man. If you're going to do some coddies, do it the Baltimore way. Buy some salt cod. So I was very happy with the coddies. Very simple to make. They came out perfectly, even though it was my first time attempting them. But I was really excited to try the Baltimore Pit Beef. So let's see how that came out.
All right, we are ready to assemble our Baltimore Pit Beef, and I'm going to use my hands. Forgive me. We're going to put a little bit of, we've got toasted buns here. We're going to put a little bit of this tiger sauce on the buns. On the bottom. And the wife and I are imbibing, so we're doing 2 of these. And then we're going to go ahead and add our beef. And I tried to slice it as thin as I could, but it is what it is. That looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? And again, if you like your beef a little bit more well done, I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you do, you can always throw it back on the grill or throw it in the microwave. As you know, that'll do it. But this is just the way I like it, man. It's perfectly cooked. And then we're gonna add a little bit of thinly sliced onions. Just a little bit on there. And one more. And then we're gonna add some more tiger sauce. A good amount more, actually. And we've got our toasted buns. Finish this one up. I'm gonna load this up with tiger sauce because I love horseradish. And we are ready to give this a try. Here we go. You'll just have to listen. Oh my God, that's good. You can see I took a healthy bite out of that. Man, I love me some Baltimore Pit Beef. Now I gotta tend to the wife.
So Baltimore Pit Beef, off the hook. Incredibly easy to make. When you add everything up, the coddies were a little bit more complicated, required a lot of prep work, some specialty ingredients, very good. Great, would be a great like winter appetizer even, in the middle of winter when you're looking for something that's, kind of that, I don't know, filling and hearty and just more stick to your bones with the potatoes and the codfish. But the Baltimore Pit Beef, man, talk about a simple roast beef sandwich. It probably didn't take me more than like 25 minutes total to prepare that meat and cook it. It was that simple. It took longer to prepare the fire than it did to cook the beef with that Baltimore Pit Beef. So I was super impressed with that. Cannot recommend it enough. We're going to kick Baltimore's ass on Sunday, but that particular roast beef sandwich is off the hook good. So don't recommend the Ravens, but I do recommend the Baltimore Pit Beef and the Coddies as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Opposing Delicacies. I'm on my own out here. I'm putting myself out there. I never know how these things are going to turn out. And but I was super impressed with both the Coddies and the Baltimore Pit Beef. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will try them. That's the point of this whole exercise. I wish I could tell you how to cook Raven, but if you tune in to the NFL network of your choosing on Sunday, you're going to see how Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and the rest of the Commanders cook some Raven. But until next time, come visit us at bgobsession.com. We have been around since 2009, a fantastic forum. We have everything is free. We have some great contests. We have game day chats, which are infamous for fun and hilarity. Whether we're winning or not, we enjoy ourselves. And we're very active on Twitter, our Facebook group, and Instagram. And of course, enjoy our regular BGO Blind Pig podcast with the whole crew. We have a great group of guys involved in our podcast. And those are available on YouTube as well as all audio podcast providers. So go Washington, kick some ass on Sunday. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Get cooking.